My name is Bradley Flam. I'm speaking to the group here in Sites. I am the director of the Office of Sustainability and am very happy to welcome everybody online and in person to this, the sixth lecture presentation in our Sustainability Research and Practice seminar. We're halfway through a really fascinating program of talks. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, please go to the Office of Sustainability's website and you'll find a list of all the presentations that will take place throughout the rest of the semester. We're taking a break, of course, next week for spring break, but we'll be back on March 23rd with Professor Alex Cohen from the marketing department, and then we have 5 more presentations after that. So please join us. We're very proud to co-sponsor this series with the Office for Research and Sponsored Programs and with the Sustainability Council's Scholarly and Creative Activities Committee. So with that, I'd like to end and pass the digital floor over to Dr. Ruby and to her student colleagues, Madeline Mulcahey and Christine Recchi. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your names.
You did great, don't worry.
Thank you. And please do let me know if there is any problem with the sound. So far, it seems like it's working. So thank you again inviting us, and I'm delighted to be here. So let me share my PowerPoints with you, and we will go from there. So I'm going to start with just to share the title, and then we will move from there. So we titled our presentation with considering sustainability from the perspective of accountability. And during the presentation and over this time that we have together, I'm hoping that all of us who are here, we are going to take away something and consider that what are our responsibilities in terms of how are we contributing to the environment and our carbon footprints, and what we can do, what kind of responsibility we do have. And I'm going to show you a short clip video too, just to make my point. But to give you a little bit of backstory of my background, that I grew up in a Muslim household as a Muslim. And one of the key teachings of Islam is that we as human beings, we are accountable. We have given freedom to choose between different things. And therefore, we are also accountable what we do in this world. And in the end of the day, what matters is that how we conducted ourselves in this world. So that accountability is built into my raising and my consciousness as a Muslim person. And that is one aspect of accountability that I'm encountering. So everything that I do, ideally, I'm supposed to be reflecting on that, how my actions, my thoughts, my deeds are contributing, and in the end, what are the accountabilities I'm going to face based on those. So just to give you on practical level, it's not just an abstract idea. Growing up, my parents always, and people around me, that was just common sense perception that I acquired, that I cannot leave water running. Period. And it was not about that our bill is going to be high, and that's why we need to take care of, or a country in Pakistan that I grew up is shortage of water, or things like that. None of them. It was basic Islamic principle that was instilled in terms of especially water, that running water is not acceptable. And everything that we use in this world, we are accountable, and we will be asked, how did we use that? And water is one of those things that was just right there, that where we need to be very responsible. So that kind of accountability led into every other aspect of the life. So that's where usually I come from. But from the Western perspective, and I'm trying here as we based this presentation based on the last semester's course that I taught, globalization and the ethics of sustainability. So in that, one of the readings that we use just to be clarified to my students and for the class, that what are the ways in which Western philosophical traditions, they have identified moral responsibilities and ethics. And here I'm drawing our own faculty from philosophy department, that usually there are three, when we talk about moral responsibilities or what is ethics, these are the three categories that we think about, that our actions have consequences, and we are responsible. What we do, our duties, our responsibilities, and also then valuations of those developments, the characters that we acquire, that how do we manifest those. So that's in terms of the Western perspective, the greater, what we call the greatest happiness principle. So based on that, then one key aspect that I bring into this course is that because our actions have consequences, and we need to be mindful of that, what kind of actions we are taking on a daily basis, and how do we calculate between the risk and the benefits and the interest for the greater good for other people. So that is in a small way, because of the time constraint, I'm summarizing here quickly the ethics principle that I bring here, that our actions have consequences. So that is built into that, how we as people have responsibilities and accountability. Over the course of period, I also emphasize that while globalization, colonization, and environmental destruction, they might seem quite overwhelmed, because as individual, we can only require ourselves, and we are accountable what we do. We need to keep that to ourselves and how we interact. So that with other pieces, so that will keep us a little bit less overwhelmed. And as our wonderful students are going to share some of the strategies that they drafted based on what we can do on a daily basis, personal level. And I hope that we will find it useful. So because this course is based on globalization, and globalization, as many scholars have identified, continuation of colonization, here is some of the ways that we need to think about that. How does globalization is coupled with the continuation of colonization? So because of globalization, many diverse economies have been incorporated, and cultures have been incorporated into monoculture, capitalist-based economy, control that many big corporations have over, and as a result, many small businesses have to go extinct because simply they cannot sustain themselves. Military actions that we see in the past, that we saw structural adjustments programs as a result of that, racist attacks on immigrants, especially as a result of wars and environmental destruction, that we are implicit in that. But when people face poverty as a result of those actions, they are usually seen as that alien and racist attacks that we see. And communities pay a real price for that. People, marginalized communities, people in the global South, indigenous communities here, they have usually no decision-making power, how our economies are structured, how we are going to engage in war, if we are going to engage in war. So we can see that the hierarchies and the power structure that is played here in the globalization's paradigm. So in this course, and usually thinking about globalization and environmental destruction, I also draw heavily on ecofeminists and people, scholars in the global south. In this case, in this course, I especially use Vandila Shiva's and Mariami's readings and their wisdom in terms of thinking about environmental destruction. What they call the good life and the catching up myth, that there is usually this, with modernity, usually there is this assumption that we in the West, we have made progress and other countries just need to catch up with us. And as we know that this catching up is not possible. This catching up is not possible because it is built into the exploitation of the resources from other parts of the world and the lifestyle that we sustained in the West, that we call it modern and progressive and developed. It is based on consumer lifestyle. And we know that the planet has limitation. Many scholars now identify that if everybody is going to live according to the Western lifestyle, we need to have 3 to 4 planets. But we know that we have only one planet, and our resources are not endless. But then we realized that as a result of our development that we call progress and development, it is the results of creating poverty in other parts of the world, especially in the global south. Because without, we are rich because we make other people, other countries, other regions poor. And we are also cannot see the real, especially because I come from the Department of Women's and Gender Studies. My discipline is Women's and Gender Studies, where women gender analysis is at the heart of everything that we in my research and my teaching. So I also focus on that how globalization and colonization especially affects women, and women's majority of women's liberation around the globe is not possible because of capitalist-based economy and what we call development that is actually not development, that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Because if we are destroying our ecological resources and ecological destruction, it's not going to result into liberation for anyone. And it is going to especially affect women in the global south. We also need to go beyond and see what other aspects of this good life model suggest. What it suggests is that the colonizers' lifestyles are superior, and they are superior not only in terms of materially conducting lifestyles, but also morally superior, which means that people, majority of people around the globe, and especially people in the global south, they have to devalue their own lifestyles, their own culture, their own values, their own religion, the wisdom that the humanity acquired over the period of centuries. Because all of a sudden, industrialization and modernity made it as if this is the right way to live, and everybody just need to catch up with the industrialization. And that catching up also means that we are going to have laws according to the good life model. And that is going to create dependency, because that capitalism is built into this idea. And Western, after the Second World War, Western policies like the creation of the World Bank, IMF, they are all part of this grand structure that other economies, other regions have to depend on the West in order to sustain Western hegemony, especially the United States hegemony in the world. So in order to make that point clear, let me share with you a short video that is going to make very concrete ways that how we bring resources from other parts of the world to make ourselves as sustainable on this side and make ourselves rich. So let me stop sharing the PowerPoints, and I'm going to share very quickly with you a short video that is going to highlight that. So it is about 4 minutes. Maybe I will stop at 3 minutes just to make.
They're talking a lot about inequality, about the fact that the richest 1% have everybody.
Just to make sure you can hear, right? Could anybody say? Can you hear it?
Yes, we can hear.
Good.
Else. But most of the focus seems to be on the United States. And it strikes me that the same story needs to be told about global inequality too. So I did some research, and this is what I found from reliable sources like the UN. It turns out that while the US is totally out of whack, things are actually way worse for the planet as a whole. Let's start with this graph. A perfectly even distribution of wealth among all living people, with everyone divided into 5 equal groups. Now, let's show how much each group actually has. Shocking, right? 80% of the world's people barely have any wealth. It's hard to even see them on the chart. Meanwhile, the richest 2%, they have more wealth than half of the rest of the world. Let's look at this chart another way. Let's take the whole world's population, all 7 billion of us, and reduce it to just a representative 100 individuals. Here they are, poorest people on the left, richest people on the right. Now let's show how the world's total wealth, roughly $223 trillion, is distributed. The vast majority have practically nothing. Nothing with which to educate their children, nothing with which to pay for basic medicines. While the richest 1%, they've accumulated 43% of our world's wealth. The bottom 80%, meanwhile, that's 8 out of every 10 people, have just 6% between them. But even this doesn't really show how extreme things have become. The richest 300 people on Earth have the same wealth as the poorest 3 billion. So the number of people it takes to fill a mid-sized commercial aircraft have more wealth than the populations of India, China, the US, and Brazil combined. We can also see this difference geographically, with a huge and growing gap between a few rich places versus the majority of the world. For most of history, things were much more equal. 200 years ago, rich countries were only 3 times richer than poor countries. By the end of colonialism in the 1960s, they were 35 times richer. Today, they're about 80 times richer. Rich countries try to compensate for this by giving aid to poor countries, about $130 billion each year. That's a lot of money. So then why does the wealth gap keep getting bigger? One reason I found is that large corporations are taking more than $900 billion out of poor countries each year through a form of tax avoidance called trade mispricing. On top of this, each year poor countries are paying about $600 billion in debt service to rich countries on loans that have already been paid off many times over. And then there's the money that poor countries lose from trade rules imposed by rich countries to get access to more resources and cheaper labor. Economists from the University of Massachusetts calculate that this costs poor countries about $500 billion a year. Altogether, that's more than $2 trillion that flows from some of the poorest parts of the world to the richest. Every year. Rich governments like to say they're helping poor countries develop. But who's developing who here? This makes me think that there's something wrong with the basic rules of the global economy. It can't be okay that the wealth of our planet is becoming so concentrated in the hands of such a tiny number of people. The only reasonable response, it seems to me, and our only hope, is to change the rules.
So I hope that you got the idea that how do we manage to bring so much money, like $2 trillion, and this is a little bit dated source that I have found. And I'm sure that especially COVID, post-COVID, and after over time, things are just getting worse. So you got the idea that how do we manage this lifestyle? And this lifestyle is not going to be manageable without trillions of dollars shipped from the global south to the global north. So that's where this good life model critique is that life model is built into colonization. That is now we call it globalization. And because of that, there is no way that we can see real equality among and between different countries and regions. In terms of environmental destruction, as Vandana Shiva and Miriamis called it, that most people know the effects of environmental destruction and our consumer based lifestyle, that this is not sustainable, we are hurting our environment. Nonetheless, they continue to live the lifestyle that is readily available here on this part of the world. And despite the fact knowing that we continue with our present lifestyle, and that's where I was referring to, that as a result of this seminar, I hope that each one of us take away something that personally what we can do. And especially our students are going to have some suggestions for us. So before we move forward with their presentation, a few more things that I would like to share with you. That's how this catching up especially is not going to liberate women around the globe. And usually feminists and like Vandana Shiva, they identify 4 reasons. One is that this good life model treats women of the global south as commodities and manipulate their desires and needs. We see in the form of cheap labor, for instance. We also see that because planet has limitation, we cannot extend the good life model to everyone. That is not going to happen. And this catching up myth is just a myth. We also see that solidarity among women is not possible because women in the global south, they depend exploitation of the women in the global south, because otherwise we are not going to maintain our lifestyle. And the ecological effects on women in the global south, they are more intense than they are in the global north ever. So to make this point a little bit more concrete and to give you a little bit more ideas. When we say that commodification of women or ecological destruction, they have more intense form on women of the of global south. One area is cash crops. As a result of cash crops, we know that monoculture people in the global south, farmers, they are encouraged and pressured to grow cash crops. And as a result of cash crop, we have lost the diversity in that people were used to based on small farming, and that they were women were more able to sustain themselves. So this is just to give you one example. Batwi is one leafy green vegetable that was harvested along with wheat when wheat was grown in small farms. But as a result of commercial farming, because we use many pesticides and fertilizers, they are going to just kill everything, including batu. Women in the global south now, they are malnutrition because this green leaf vegetable was rich in iron that was able to them sustain them during especially pregnancy. And as a result of malnutrition, it has gone through to next generation that children are not born as healthy as they were. So you will see that the results of one thing, how it can be more dying to other and leads. So monocultures are one big issue that we are facing here. Because of that time, I'm going to skip over some of my slides here. Power, for instance, water crisis, and another one, dependency paradigm is another one. And I'm going to go to one more piece of information and one more article, one more author, and what we have talked about is that the sustainability, because we will see that the sustainability model and the concept has penetrated into our consciousness, which is a good thing. Nonetheless, the sustainability model that says that development that meets the needs of present without compromising the ability of the future generation, it's not possible because it still continue to encourage the growth and a green economy, and we know that there are problems. In contrast to that, what we see here on this part of the world, based on indigenous scholars and their understanding, what they are saying is that this idea of sustainability is not going to let us to adopt to more sustainable lifestyles. And according to this one elderly, what they are saying is they just want to be able to keep on taking like they always have. Our first thoughts are not what can we take, but what we can give to Mother Earth. So it's not just Islamic perspective that I work. It's not just other indigenous communities perspective, but this is another way to think about that, what we can give rather than take. So based on that, these honorable harvest concepts, I hope that we will able to think about that it is between taking and leaving. Give and take, both should come together. Otherwise, we are not going to have a lifestyle that is going to sustain us for a longer period of time. And we are already seeing it is not sustainable for any stretch of our imagination. I would love to come back if we have time to this concept of honorable harvest, but I'm going to leave it because of the time constraint, and I'm going to hand over to give us some more ways to think about. All of the students in that class that I taught last semester, they have wonderful projects. I invited these because, students, or these two groups of students based on because they were having group presentations, because I thought that they focused on a daily basis practices that we all use. For instance, so Christine is going to use detergents, and everybody uses that, chemicals using household makeup that Maddie is going to use. So I hope that we are going to take away some practical tips from that, what we can do as individual on a daily basis. So Christine, go ahead.
All right, hi everyone. I just want to first start off by saying thank you, Professor Ruby. You don't know how much I actually very much enjoyed your class last semester. I took it as a gen ed, and then I ended up loving it so much. And so I just want to say thank you. The summarizing doesn't do the class justice, so trust me on that. But first, I'm going to start off by why my group and I chose the topic we did. So we chose unsafe products in the world that are dangerous to not only our environment, but also ourselves and our bodies as well. And I like to start off with the term ignorance is bliss. And with that, ignorance in this case is not good. We should be aware of what we are using on our bodies, what we are putting into our bodies, and what those products that we're using every single day are doing to our environment, especially on top of things such as global warming and all of the negativities in this world right now. We should be aware of what's happening. So we can move along to the next slide. One of the things that I'm sure all of us use is laundry detergent. And one of the biggest things with laundry detergent, whether it's using those Tide Pods or the liquids or powders, whatever you prefer, they're so dangerous. And I know that's like, oh, Christine, like, of course they're dangerous. Why wouldn't they be? But it's more specifically because of the chemicals that are inside of that. The chemicals like phosphates, as noted here, they all help with growth of algae and toxic to aquatic life. And that's not good. That's destroying not only the creatures in the ocean, but it's also destroying what they feed off of. And we'll talk later on about sunscreen and how that also affects like the coral and bleaching of all of that and so forth, but we'll get to that. So laundry detergent is one of the biggest things. And then it's, like I mentioned, because of the chemical ingredients. Sorry, I didn't make that slide. It was my one other person in my presentation. And so just don't mind me as I like read through it again. But yes, the solution that we can take a hold on is that this content is already regulated and if not banned. Phosphates aren't good and we shouldn't be using them. So we can seek greener detergent alternatives. I know there's a lot of different brands that are out there. Like we like to stick to the ones that we're used to. Like I know there's Tide and there's all of those brands, but we can look for safer options. And if you just take a look on the ingredient list on the back, we can find out like which chemicals we should be looking for that aren't good and which that are okay. And like, yes, I can use this. This is safer for our environment. And you know, when you use laundry, that laundry water is getting dispensed to somewhere. And that somewhere is our oceans and our rivers and all the surrounding bodies of water. And so just keep that in consideration next time you're doing your laundry. And then sunscreen. Now this is one that I'm very well versed on, especially being one that uses sunscreen quite often. And so yes, I know there's lots of things wrong with sunscreen. It's not just the chemicals that are inside of it that are bad for you're putting them on your body. It's not just bad for your skin, but it's also bad when you're entering a body of water like the ocean. Those chemicals aren't just sticking to you. They're being released into the water. And so some solutions that I have for that are just using alternative sunscreens that, although they are going to be on the more expensive side, and I have even decided that last summer, I was like, okay, there needs to be a change to this, especially in my daily routine. I decided to purchase a more expensive sunscreen. And it's because it doesn't have all those chemical compounds that are dangerous to not just myself, but to our aquatic life. And as you can see, we added in a picture of some of those sunscreens that are actually regulated as safe for the environment. So yes, I definitely recommend taking a look into sunscreens, especially because it's something that we should be using every single day, especially once it hits summer. And it's just such a damaging product to our environment. And that also brings me to aerosol. Aerosol, we all use it. It's Febreze, it's in hairspray, it's in all of those products. And they actually make up 6.1% of all VOC emissions in the UK. And that's just for the UK. That's not even speaking on where we are. And that's bad. So you can move along. Some solutions to that are just using deodorants, or it's not a solution, sorry. Some other things, like I mentioned, hairspray and paints, air fresheners, deodorants, they all have these harmful chemicals toward the environment, which are adding into our VOC emissions. And now here's one that I'm very also well versed in, and it's makeup wipes. Especially being a girl, a female, we wear makeup on the occasion and we use makeup wipes for the most part. And now I know if you are known to the makeup world, beauty world, makeup wipes aren't recommended to use to take off your makeup. It's actually quite harmful, not only for the environment, but also for your skin. It's not good putting that stuff on your face, and it's not good for the environment. A lot of the makeup wipes are eco-friendly, and I know that there's a lot of options, but doing something so simple as just using maybe some micellar water and a cloth or just a rag that you can reuse and wash is much more environmentally friendly, and it's just much safer for your body as well. I know aside from the things that are inside makeup wipes to help you take off all that makeup, the packaging itself is also damaging because it's using plastic, it's using chemical compounds, all to put into that. And then what do we do when we're done with it? We just throw it away. There's no use to reuse a makeup wipe bag. So it's quite harmful. And so I listed some brands on there that you can use. I used Simple brand myself before I started using just a cloth. I know sometimes it's a little harder to take off all of your makeup with just a cloth and water, but it really is better once you think about how much more helpful you are being to the environment. And now palm oil. I could talk about palm oil for years and years and years because it's something that a lot of people don't know anything about. And I know some people know what it is and some people don't know what it is. But basically palm oil is oil that's used in food manufacturing and beauty products, in biofuels, and so many daily products that are actually hidden in other ingredients. So when you're reading an ingredient list, whether it's for a product or on the back of a label of a beauty product, anything like that, you might not even know that palm oil is in it because it's disguised as a different chemical. Why is it dangerous? It's the leading cause of deforestation and destruction of local animal life's habitats. Big agribusinesses are causing lasting global deforestations, and they're doing this by growing and selling forest-destroying commodities and short-term corporate gains. And they're doing this because they can. They don't care that it's destroying habitats, or they don't care that it's destroying the indigenous people's land that was there before them. They don't care about that because they are making that profit. And like I mentioned, some of the world's best known brands, household names, are the driving demand for these cheap forest destroying commodities. Palm oil itself, like many of agribusiness commodities, is responsible for rainforest destruction. Palm oil plantations are monocultured crops. And that means that where these plantations now stand, there were once diverse rainforests that habitats and wildlife all grew in and lived in, and now they're just being destroyed to build these monocultured farms and businesses. By destroying rainforest habitats and petlands to make room for these monoculture crops, these companies are causing massive spikes in greenhouse gases being produced. And that's not good either. I know some of us should be well versed in greenhouse gases, and we know that the emissions of those aren't good for our bodies and for us breathing in those airs and gases, and it's definitely not good for our environment.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank
so,
you. Sorry if I haven't presented something in a while, so I was a little rusty, but thank you so much for this opportunity.
You're good. Go ahead, Maddie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maddie Mulcahey. I'm a sophomore anthropology major, and I'm really excited to share my group's final project for Women's Studies 260. My two other group mates who aren't here today were Deja Piles and Melissa Posner. And our topic was sustainability in the beauty industry. And then some factors that we considered to make a beauty product environmentally friendly and sustainable involved recyclable or reusable packaging and materials, vegan and ethically sourced ingredients, and whether or not a product was cruelty-free. So some important symbols you could look for on makeup and beauty products are like the Leaping Bunny seal, which has to do with animal testing, the USDA organic seal and certified vegan, which have to do with ingredients, fair trade certified, which have to do with ethically sourced ingredients, and then whether or not something is recyclable. And then we chose this topic because my group members and I were all consumers of makeup. And I know in my own life, it's one of the areas that I've found most difficult to change when examining my habits and trying to be more sustainable in my own life. And then we are interested in this topic because of issues surrounding ethical practices of labor, natural resources, and animal testing. And then we were also interested in exploring how the makeup and the beauty industry is tied to societal standards and their influence on women and girls. And then some ethical concerns that we saw in our research was whether or not something was tested on animals, had vegan, organic, and ethically sourced ingredients, and then also packaging. And we wanted to also connect the beauty industry to issues of consumption and overconsumption patterns. And then, so the next section of our project was to find resources to help people address this concern in their own daily lives. And the first resource that my group mate Mel found was a blog called Cruelty Free Kitty. And they have various resources about sustainable living, one of them being this list of companies, and they will reach out to each company individually and verify their cruelty-free status, and then vet their full animal testing policies, and then put it on their blog for everyone to read through. And then we also saw that Ulta Beauty has a filter for eco-friendly products. And they focus more on whether or not packaging is recycled, recyclable, or reusable. And then another resource we found can help you identify harmful ingredients in beauty products. It's an app called Think Dirty, and it's really cool. It lets you scan barcodes on products or search for them. And then they have a rating system based on the ingredients. So a product that has a rating of 8 through 10 would show that there's strong and conclusive evidence that ingredients in that product have long-term negative health impacts. And then the most favorable rating would be the 3 to 0 range in the green. And then on the next slide, I included an example of the app in action. It's Maybelline Great Lash Mascara, which is one of the most popular mascaras. And it's something that I had in my makeup collection before doing some research. And you can see it at the top, it has a rating of 9. And it will show you which ingredients in that product bring that rating up. And if you're interested in the science, you can actually click on each ingredient in the app and it'll break down the science in that ingredient for you, which I thought was pretty cool. And then it'll also help give you alternatives with a lower rating, which I thought was really helpful as well. And then the last resource that my groupmate Deja found was this animal cruelty chart. And we found that analyzing the sustainability of beauty products involves taking into consideration their impact on all living things. So people, planet, and animals. And so you can follow this chart to see if a product had animal testing. And then this also helps to address the common misconception that all American beauty products that are sold in China resulted in animal testing, which is not true. And then another part of our project was to connect our topic to global issues using the course readings. And so this was the part of the project I focused on. And I found that our lifestyle and consumption patterns contribute to global issues related to sustainability and ethics, and the beauty products that we consume are no exception to this. And we found the beauty industry to further issues including environmental degradation, inequities between nations, and also societal standards that harm women. And everything that we purchase has a cost, and this cost extends beyond the $3 that we could spend on a lip liner. And even though our planet has limited resources, the economic philosophy that we practice is based on unlimited growth, which is not sustainable. And increasing wealth in nations like ours comes at the expense of nature, women, and the global south specifically. And then in one of our readings, in a chapter called The Empowerment of the Environment, Women and Children Last, the author Shiva says that the natural resources and people, specifically women of the global south, are exploited to sustain the average American's lifestyle. And this lifestyle includes the overconsumption of beauty products. And if you walked into any Sephora, you could find like 50 different lipstick shades. But this really doesn't fulfill any of our fundamental human needs. And consumerism really doesn't improve our lives or give us the satisfaction that we seek. And even though makeup can be a really powerful tool for self-expression for people of all genders, these consumption patterns and pressure strongly influence women all over the world. And then in another chapter called Liberating the Consumer, the author Maria Mize states that buying new clothes or cosmetics is often an attempt to compensate for the lack of value that women generally experience in our society. And a lot of goods are intended to improve women's physical appearance, which is especially noticeable and prevalent in the beauty industry. And then can also be tied to lowered self-respect and confidence in young girls and women overall. And then the last part of our project was finding ways to address our concerns in the United States. And then this was the section that my groupmate Deja focused on. So some of our proposals were requiring that all beauty product packaging be made with recycled material, and then that packaging has the ability to be recycled post-use, because it's estimated that around 30% of the United States annual waste comes from plastic and other packaging. So this would be a really significant way to help reduce our waste. And then we also want to ensure that ingredients are sourced without the exploitation of people or natural resources, so that companies are held accountable to their communities, to consumers, and to the earth. And some of these solutions might seem like difficult to enforce or to put into practice, but we thought that these were the key ways, and this was all necessary to a truly sustainable beauty industry.
Thank you very much, Maddie. That's great. So I know that we are at my computer at 12:48. I usually do this because all of this is not going to mean much unless we really want to do something practically in our personal lives. So I would usually ask everybody that we can close our eyes for 30 seconds. Just pick one thing that you think that you can do. We cannot do everything, but we can do something. So one thing that you can commit to for the next 3 months, 6 years, because we cannot commit everything for the rest of our life. Maybe it means that you are going to eat meat less than what you eat. Maybe rather than eating meat for 4 days, you are going to eat for 3 days. You are buying beauty products, maybe you are going to do a little bit research and buy more sustainable. You are going to buy laundry detergent next time, maybe you will commit that for the next 6 months. This is what I'm going to do. So I would invite everybody just for 30 seconds, take 30 seconds and commit to something that is going to be environmentally beneficial. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of you for sharing your work with us. There's a group here in Sykes, and if any of you have questions here, I'll bring the laptop to you. But if any of our audience online has a question, please also feel free to speak up.
I have a question. Hello, Dr. Ruby. Thank you so much for this amazing presentation. It was really enlightening. Thank you. I wanted to ask if there was any further lectures or resources or books that I could dig into, because I love this whole thing and I wanted to find more.
I'm going to second that.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. As our students also, like Mary and they also presented, if you just Google search these resources are available, like these kinds of blogs or websites are built into that. So for instance, thinking about that, this is the product that I want to see, that how can I eliminate that? I usually have this as I also share. So that is one thing that you can look up resources. They are all over on internet, that which products are using more environmentally friendly products. That's one thing. I also, because this is such an overwhelming topic that we cannot, and because the lifestyle, it is built into now in our lifestyle, it's very difficult to deviate from that lifestyle. I usually recommend is that because we are accountable what we do, just focus on yourself rather than thinking about that it is such a big problem. I cannot convince everybody and my doing is not going to do anything. But it is where we are, right? It is only the personal level that we can control. So I usually say that also it's just like dieting, that don't say that I'm for the rest of the time, my life, I'm not going to do this, because usually we are not going to stick to that. Or say that going to the gym, this is not sustainable. So sustainability building into our lifestyle is important. So I usually recommend making incremental changes in your lifestyle. So one example, for instance, people use or eat 5 times a day meat. and red meat especially, I would just say that try to commit for the next 3 months 4 times and then build from there. And this is something that I know that it works.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Got it. I had a quick question if nobody else has one right now. I found this reminder that we as individuals have responsibilities and accountabilities to keep in mind. I'm wondering how we link that individual action to collective action, which can also both have positive environmental benefits and social benefits too, but can also make it easier for us to make those individual choices.
Yeah. So I know that it is very difficult. I am totally aware of that. And again, but I see that finding like-minded people, finding and making incremental changes. So for instance, if you are really passionate about meat and how can we reduce some of the, having those kind of people around you that they are also concerned about the same issue, and then having long-term effects moving forward. So I don't see there is any quick fixes to the problems that we are encountering. It is only the small actions, they are going to lead to big actions. I know that we cannot overturn capitalist-based economy. We cannot overturn cutting our trees that big corporations are doing, but we can form smaller groups. They find a couple or one issue that they are really passionate about, and I think that passion is going to lead to finding more communities around us and advocating for that, and I am sure that other people are going to join that. This is the strategy I usually see that works.
Thank you. It's 12:55. Are there any last questions before we thank our presenters for the important work that they've shared with us today?
I thank you, everyone. And I also thank you, our wonderful students. Thank you for being with me. I appreciate
Yes.
you.
Thank you very much. A virtual and a real round of applause to all of you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.